In the last chapter, we introduced broad marketing concepts like channels and tactics. In this chapter, we will cover marketing data sources. Marketing data comes from many sources such as internal financial data, advertising tools, and website data. Even a single channel can use multiple advertisers with distinct data sources. Marketing analysts utilize many data sources to analyze marketing engagement, cost, and revenue impact by different campaign attributes. Revenue data is usually stored separately from marketing engagement data, so analysts must join the data across sources to get a complete view of performance. Campaign attributes are a type of metadata, or data that describes data. These attributes help marketing analysts compare data across channels and tactics. The most common examples of campaign attributes are campaign name and ID. We may also want to compare campaign types, like recurring holiday campaigns, or by campaigns targeting similar audiences. Remember how we covered KPI themes in business questions to assess marketing performance? Partners inquire about overall business health or marketing health. Luckily, those groups map to data source categories of internal and advertising data. Business health metrics and dimensions about products, order quantity and revenue, and customer identifiers are all found in internal data. Advertising data contains marketing metrics and dimensions like campaign identifiers, marketing spend, and individual ad costs. Marketing analysts need to assess the level of detail needed to answer a business question and which source most likely contains relevant data. Since marketing health data originates from advertisers, how would we approach comparing a TV campaign to a paid search campaign? Channel and tactic granularity is another complicating factor in analysis and reporting. Offline channels, like TV, do not tie ads to specific users, so they have the least granular data and aggregate at the campaign and tactic level. By comparison, online channels are very granular because they can be associated with devices and individual browsing behavior. Marketing analysts have to navigate these granularity differences across channels in reporting. Most campaign metadata comes from advertiser platforms. Advertiser platforms are systems and tools that facilitate the purchase and distribution of ads. Advertising platforms are used by marketers to execute media and monitor reports. When launching a campaign, marketers will log into the advertiser's tool to set spend limits, success metrics, and campaign metadata. To be able to advise on how to integrate advertiser data with internal data stores, a marketing analyst needs a strong understanding of advertiser data sources. The final marketing data source that analysts should become familiar with is audience targeting tools. For example, marketers may have a target audience in mind, like women who live in the US ages 35 to 49. Each advertising platform may have a different way of identifying these audiences, like females versus women, or US versus United States. Marketers use demand-side platforms, or DSPs, to more consistently set media spend by target audience despite these differences between advertising platforms. Data management platforms, or DMPs, centralize audience and campaign engagement data across platforms. These tools work best when analysts use a DSP to understand target audience definitions, and then a DMP to compare customer engagement data. Let's consider how DSPs, DMPs, and internal data can work together. First, use the DSP to look up target audience IDs and spend by different dimensions. Then, look at DMP engagement data by the same target audience. Next, extract internal data to see all users, in target audience or not, to benchmark against. Finally, compare internal data to DSP spend and DMP engagement to evaluate performance. Time to practice identifying the differences between marketing data sources. Data privacy and laws such as GDPR have shaped the way businesses handle data. It is paramount for marketing analysts to understand and protect customer privacy. There are many laws around the world trying to protect personal data in different ways. These laws usually require deleting user data on request, masking user identifiers, and limiting data use for marketing purposes. Frequently, this leads to reduced data volume and granularity, and losing the ability to join all customer data. While we don't need to become lawyers by the end of this course, marketing analysts must understand the basics of data privacy and proactively flag potential privacy risks in data. Another term that might sound familiar is personally identifiable information, also called PII. PII is any information that can identify an individual. Some PII is obvious. Someone's name and address can identify a person uniquely. With digital tracking, PII expands to include IP addresses, website logins, and other data that digitally identifies a person. Unfortunately, privacy laws interpret PII differently, but with practice, marketing analysts can become skilled at anticipating which data could be considered PII. How do we gather data that could be considered PII? Online channel tracking relies on cookies, small files that store browsing behavior. Offline channels only use cookies with digital tactics, like streaming radio. There are two main types of cookies. First-party cookies are used by individual websites to store visiting customer data. Third-party cookies collect data across many domains for advertisers who want to display relevant ads. Privacy laws impact all types of cookies, but third-party more than first-party. This is because third-party cookies track the customer broadly, which leads to uses that the customer did not agree to. Marketing analysts must keep this in mind and be aware of which type of cookies capture marketing data. Let's talk about GDPR. GDPR was the first privacy law enacted at scale to limit the use of PII. It applies to users living in the European Union. We are probably used to tracking consent banners now. It was GDPR that started that standard. GDPR requires companies to disclose data collection, and customers must opt in to tracking. The GDPR definition of PII includes names, addresses, photos, and IP addresses. GDPR violations are severe. Companies can be fined up to 4% of revenue. Analysts must flag potential GDPR misuse of PII to keep customer data safe. There is an easy way to narrow down which data will be restricted or hidden to meet privacy law requirements. If we consider the channel, geography, browser or operating system, and any potential PII, we can see which laws apply. For example, if we have a paid search campaign targeting users in California, we will have to consider California's privacy laws. Other factors to consider are that Apple devices on the iOS 14 operating system are moving to opt-in tracking, and in the future, Google Chrome will block third-party cookies. This will limit the ability to target customers using Chrome. If we use this formula to anticipate privacy implications, we can safely analyze and report on marketing data. Let's test out how well we can identify privacy risks. While privacy implications impact marketing analysis and tracking choices, a more fundamental challenge is measuring channel impact when there is no direct customer interaction with advertising. In marketing analytics, we think of performance measurement as either direct or indirect impact. This grouping is based on our ability to tie downstream customer actions to upstream advertising. Direct impact means data that shows the customer took action directly on an ad. Usually, this means a click event. How can we measure the impact of TV ads? We might see an ad for a resort, but we do not tell the resort we booked a vacation due to that TV ad. Various studies have shown that even when a customer sees an ad but does not click on it, they are still more likely to engage with the company via direct channels. This is considered indirect marketing impact, as customer interaction cannot be observed in the data, also called view-through impact. Now that we know the basic differences between direct and indirect impact, let's talk about some examples of direct channels. Usually, these are ads we see as we browse through digital platforms like websites and mobile apps. Some common examples are paid search, social media, and sponsored content. We can click on links directly through ads in these channels and purchase immediately after. Indirect ads tend to be traditional advertising methods we can listen to or watch. Media channels like TV, radio, and podcasts usually result in customers engaging through a direct channel to eventually take action. For example, when someone hears an ad on the radio, they could search for the brand and click on a paid search ad. Similarly, ads we see on billboards, public transportation, mail, and print newspapers will have an indirect impact. Compared to direct channels, indirect channels can be very costly, and as marketing analysts, we will be asked to assess performance on high-level, aggregated data. Display advertising, advertising via banners, has not been listed in direct or indirect yet. While display banner ads are clickable, usually we will see a click-through rate under 1% out of everyone who received display impressions. Impressions are another way of referring to ad views. This low click-through rate is why display is usually measured via its indirect impact. The lines between direct and indirect channels are becoming increasingly blurred as traditionally offline channels change over time. For example, streaming radio or TV. As marketing analysts, we will have to decide whether to measure direct or indirect impact based on the potential for a high click-through rate. Now, let's compare channels based on their potential impact.